What is up, guys? My name is Brandon Robles, and today I am going to tell you 5 things you need to know in order to get started selling books on eBay. So this is going to be a very short video. I'm not going to go in exact detail in each one, but these are the 5 things you need to start understanding and learning and researching so you know not to miss out on any kind of books that you run across. So with that being said, at number 1 is going to be publishers. You need to familiarize yourself with the publishers that you run across. When I mean publishers, I'm talking about the Random House, McGraw-Hill, or other publishers just like that. So you understand if it is a more common, heavily printed publisher, or if it's a more rare one. On the more rare case, Easton Press, they're very identifiable. I'm sure you've seen them. But Easton Press is a highly graded publisher, right? They pretty much give the Rolls Royces of books, as they say. So Easton Press is a great publisher, or Franklin Library, and other items or other publishers like that. So just familiarize yourself, get used to what publishers you're running across when you're going through books, and make sure to look that up as well. At number 2 are going to be published dates, when it was printed. What really is an old book? Back when I first started, I thought early 1900s, as in 1930s, 1920s, were really old, oh my gosh, before World War II. But in reality, those are pretty common. You run across those quite often. In the case of Modern Library, it's another publisher, right? They came out with a lot of them in the early 1900s, like 1920s, 30s, 40s, and so on. They kept on going, but you run across a lot of them for the 1940s. That's not really that old. I actually run across late 1800s more than you think. I've run across mid 1800s, and my earliest book I've dealt with is 1819 or something like that. And those are definitely more of okay, this is an old book, that's good. But just because the age is there does not mean that the book is worth it at all. It definitely increases the value a little bit compared to a book that just isn't that old. But when you're talking old books, you're talking late 1800s, mainly mid 1800s and early 1800s is what you're looking for, and of course anything before that is gold. So just to understand what really is an old book, and pay attention to that as well. At number 3 is signature confirmation. I've actually run across a couple of books where it was when I look for it's clearly printed, but there'll be the author, right? I mean, it could be Mark Twain or something, and and then I look, I'm oh my gosh, there's a signature of Mark Twain. But in reality, it was just a print. It's in every single book of that specific book it came out with. But back then I was oh my gosh, this book's signed or whatever. Don't be fooled. The easiest way I learned to do it, and this is not foolproof because sometimes it doesn't show up, but if you look up the book signed, and if you see it on eBay, you can just kind of check and see if that is a signature. I've used that a lot of times. And if not, you just simply Google the person's signature. And then also, if you're not sure, just like I was, you're not sure about a specific person like Mark Twain, oh, this is definitely signed, just kind of look up when they died and when the book was printed, and then you'll kind of know, kind of obvious, but I definitely had to run through that a couple of times because I just wasn't familiar with the authors at all. And there's also lesser known authors, and that's when you can tell if the ink bleeds through, or again, if you just search up on eBay or just on Google, you can see other actual signed copies of that book, and you can match up and see whether it's just a print or if it is indeed actually signed. Okay, number 4 is first edition books. So there's a lot of confusion, and I'm actually still learning about it too. But you need to understand what really is a first edition. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen the number sequences. So with that sequence I'm talking about, you need to see 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then first edition. That usually means it's more of a first edition. But there's a lot of different ways for each book to tell. It's odd, and you need to do your research on it. Again, some books like Harry Potter, I do know that people get confused if it's a first edition. In reality, it's not a true first edition, it's just a first edition of that print. So a lot of times a book should be a first edition, first print. There's other books I've literally run across where it does not tell you first edition. It could be a book from 1970. That could be a first edition. And another way to verify that, look up online. You can see other people, and you'll just be able to learn that way. Of some books simply blatantly say first edition. Some books is just the sequence. Some books, they literally do not say it, and the only way you can identify it is if it says 1970, nothing else. But if it says 1970, but this specific book was published in 1973, then obviously it's like a second print or a later edition. But there's just a bunch of different stuff. But just research per book, get familiar with it. You'll start to recognize them more. But every single time I think I see some kind of first edition that may be actually worth something, I always research. That's what this game is all about, is research. So just, if you think you have a first edition, just make sure. The worst thing that could happen is you list it, and then either people are going to call you out on it that actually know what they're talking about, like a buyer, or the buyer buys it and then somehow confirms that it isn't. So you don't want to run into that. So just kind of know what you're talking about. It really just helps out with your buyers. You want to be a credible source for them, and if they see that you just don't know what you're talking about, they're not going to take any of your listings at value, because you just don't know what you're talking about. All right, and coming in at number 5 is more of an obvious one, but try to complete sets. So make sure that you're looking at the title page or on the spine for either numbers, or it says it's part of a trilogy or just a set or something, because books individually, they may not be worth it, but in a set, they may be worth quite a bit of money. So if you do like kind of a bulk buy from somewhere or something, perhaps even a Gaylord if you're doing bulk books, put it to the side, and if you recognize that it's in a set, put it to the side and continue going through all your boxes or whatever the heck it is, and try to complete that set, because those sets can be worth a good amount of money for a complete set. Or if you don't have a complete, it's not the best, but you can also lot them up as well. But I've done that where I've had it was 100 book set, and I was selling, when I came across them, I was selling like 1 or 2, and I sold them off, and then so I had like 98 out of 100. So don't make that mistake, guys. So just make sure the books you're selling are a part of a set or something, and you may even have the rest of that set. And then once you're done going through all the inventory you bought, then go ahead and do whatever you want, whether it's worth it or not, to list it. But just, again, be on the lookout for numbers on the spine, numbers on the title page, or if it says part of a book set or something like that. So yeah, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Comment down below with any questions or suggestions for future videos, because that helps me make content, and I can give a video based specifically on your question. I can answer it directly. As always, guys, stay hustling. I'll see you in the next video.
Ice in my veins, I've been driving this train. Years in this lane, there's no stopping this flame. Cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain. Yeah, I got what it takes, made lots of mistakes, taking shots, skipping breaks, feeling lost, feeling great, popping off, singing straight, never stop, never change.